Hello, everyone. My name is Raji Ishwaran. I am a product manager on the Azure Storage team, and I'm here today to talk to you about massively scalable storage platform for your analytics workloads. So let's get started. Storage, there's various types of storage that are available to customers today, depending on the type of workload that you're planning to run. You've got disk storage or block storage if you're using virtual machines. You've got general purpose object storage and file storage. What we're going to talk about today is primarily around object storage. On Azure, we call that the Azure Blob Storage Platform. Data Lake Storage is essentially a capability on the Azure Blob Storage Platform, and that's what we're going to touch on today. Let's understand why analytics is so important. It all starts with the data. You've probably heard the cliche saying that data is the new oil, but it is a fact. Data is so important for all businesses today. Your business is typically run on the data that you have within the organization, and it's what makes the businesses even possible in this new digital economy. Regardless of which industry you're in, whether you're a retailer, whether you're in the healthcare industry, education, it doesn't really matter. Data is going to be very crucial for every possible industry type because all of these industries run on data, including even consumers like ourselves. Like we rely on data, for example, our Fitbits, the watches that we wear. We rely on all of that data for us to make decisions in terms of what we eat, how we exercise, how we live. So data is going to be very critical for us now and well into the future. And businesses that don't understand the value of the data that they have are not going to be able to survive. It is a competitive advantage that organizations do have, and they have to leverage that. So now that we understand the value and the importance of data, we also need to understand what you can do with it. Once you're able to analyze the data that you have within your enterprise, you can start now looking at what's the current state of my business? How am I doing? How am I performing? Your knowledge workers or even your C-level executives can now start taking decisions, data-driven decisions based on that data. So you're now more well-informed when you're making these very business-critical decisions. And last but not the least, you get to take humans out of the equation. Decisions that are being made today that take a lot of time because humans are involved can now be replaced by machines. Machine learning, artificial intelligence, all of these are going to help you now reduce that time to the insights that you need to get from the data that you have. So let's talk about why data lakes are important for these analytics and for the decisions that you need to go and make. Number one, in order for you to get better insights from that data, you need to be able to look at a diverse amount of data or diverse sets of data. Structured, semi-structured, unstructured data. There are so many different types of data out there. You need to be able to collect all of that data in large volumes in a single place such that you can now start making sense of all of that data together. Second, since you've got large volumes of data, you also want to be able to store that at fairly low cost. And so cost effectiveness is also going to be a very integral part of that decision-making process. And last but not the least, you want to be able to use that data, and you don't want to be pigeonholed into using a specific set of solutions. So you need that openness. You need that broad ecosystem in order to act upon that data. Let's now go talk about what services or what products and capabilities we have on Azure in this space. Like we said, there's going to be large volumes of data in different formats. You need capabilities to ingest that data onto your data lake. Services like Azure Data Factory is a good example of what you could use to ingest these massive volumes of data into your data lake. You've got analytics engines like Synapse Analytics, Databricks, or HT Insights, which is open source Hadoop infrastructure on Azure, to prepare that data, curate it, aggregate it, and also put them in data warehouses. For example, Synapse Analytics also includes data warehousing capabilities. So all of these analytics engines allow you to process that data and model or serve that to an application, whether it's to a data scientist who's using some kind of a data science workbench, or someone who just wants to visualize them using BI reports, in which case you can use things like Power BI. And at the very heart of all of this is Azure Data Lake Storage, because that is where you're collecting all of this data, super low cost, and the platform that can handle variety of data formats, and also massively scalable platform. Why is Azure Data Lake Storage so important for you to build your data lake? Number one, the scalability and the performance. And we'll go into a little bit of the capabilities that we have on the platform around scalability and performance. Like I said, cost effectiveness, object storage prices, so super cheap. Third, you don't want to just put your data on a platform without having the ability to govern it or provide access control around it. So we've got capabilities to allow you to govern access to that data. And last but not the least, data lake storage, like I said, it is the foundation for a lot of the analytics platforms out there. And so you need something that is scalable from that sense as well. Let's take a look at a data lake storage solution for analytics and why it is differentiated compared to some of the other solutions out there. Number one, it is built on top of blob storage, which is a proven, massively scalable platform, storage platform that Azure has had for more than a decade now. What we've done on that platform is just added a few capabilities that are unique, to bring out the performance for analytics workloads. So number one, we've added a hierarchical namespace, which is essentially a way for you to organize that data within the object storage platform in folders and files, which are typically how analytics engines interact with that data. On top of that, we also have a multi-protocol access platform, which means depending on the kind of workload that you have, if you didn't have this capability, you're likely going to be using 3 different services or 4 different services because each service needs to access that same data with a different protocol. With this design, you store the data once, and depending on the protocol that we use, we allow you to access your data using that protocol, all with the same data, but not having to create any copies. So that's a huge benefit. We also have other capabilities that we've added, which is the HDFS-compatible driver, which you will use on your Hadoop clusters. And a combination of all of this is what we call the data lake storage capability on Azure. So now let's dig a little bit into the scalability and the performance aspect of it. Scalability, for example, because you're talking about petabytes of data, and petabytes and terabytes are the new norm. People don't deal with gigabytes of data anymore. You need a platform that is massively scalable. Data lake storage is a massively scalable platform. Number two, you don't want to be thinking about pre-provisioning that capacity and having to deal with adding capacity when your workloads scale. All of the scale is on demand. We will scale as your workload grows. And we also want this to be massively scalable from a regional availability standpoint. Azure has a presence in 60 to 70 regions across the globe, and Azure Data Lake Storage is available in every single one of these regions. So if you've got data sovereignty requirements where you cannot take the data out, we're there. We are scalable from that point of view as well. Now let's talk about the performance aspect of the platform. In any other cloud storage or object storage platform, when you want to organize your data, you're likely organizing it into folders and files. Now let's take an operation that you're likely to do as part of an analytics workload. You've got a folder of data and you want to delete it. In the normal object storage platform, an operation like a delete means you've got to enumerate all of the files in the folder that you're trying to delete, and you've got to go delete them one by one. And so if you've got n number of files in there, in order for you to complete that operation, you're talking n times the order of magnitude for you to actually go and complete that operation. Now let's look at how we do this on Azure Data Lake Storage. The benefits of having a hierarchical namespace implementation on the server side allows you to treat that folder as a first-class citizen. And so if you want to go and make that same delete, you're not enumerating all of the files in the system. You're doing one metadata operation against that one folder, you delete it super quick, and instead of completing that operation in n times what it takes for you to delete a file, you're completing that operation in milliseconds because it's not even an actual delete operation, it's only a metadata operation. So this is an example of how the benefits of the platform that we have on Azure can kind of translate into performance characteristics for you on your compute infrastructure as well. So now let's talk about security. Like I said, you need the ability to go and provide access control for that data. On Azure, you have a variety of levers to protect that data that you have on the platform. Number one, AAD-based authentication mechanisms, such that you can make sure you're authenticating all of the users that are accessing your platform. We also have a whole bunch of authorization mechanisms. What's unique to Data Lake Storage is what we call the POSIX-based access control mechanism, where you can not only authorize using shared key signatures or role-based authentication mechanisms, but also at the folder level and the file level, you can now set up these access control lists such that you can now start governing access at super fine-grained levels. Then let's talk about the actual data itself. We allow abilities for you to go encrypt that data, whether it's at rest or whether it's in transit. We also allow you to specify your own keys or allow Microsoft to manage the keys. And last but not the least, there are a lot of audit and compliance requirements that your organizations might have. And we have industry-wide certifications on the platform that gives you that peace of mind that your data is safe with Microsoft. Let's now touch on the cost effectiveness. As I mentioned, Data Lake Storage is built on an object storage platform. So it is super cheap to begin with. If you're coming from on-premises, especially if you've got a Hadoop environment already on-premises, you're having to deal with the challenge of not having the ability to scale your compute and your storage separately because it is a monolithic platform. So if you need the capacity for compute, you wind up stranding some of the storage capacity. In the cloud, and of course for Data Lake Storage as well, you have that flexibility of separating the compute and the storage, and so you can manage your storage costs independently of your compute costs. And that's an advantage in itself when you move to the cloud. The other element of cost effectiveness is the performance. As you've seen, the performance on Data Lake Storage is way better off, much faster than the traditional object storage systems. And so an operation that would have taken n times more on another platform will take milliseconds on our platform. What does that mean? It means if I had to run the job for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, it actually doesn't have to take that long when I'm doing some of these metadata operations that fast. And so it also translates to compute cost reduction for you because of the high performance on the storage platform. And then about data management. When you store data within the storage platform, we also give you the choice of multiple tiers. You've got a premium tier where you pay more, but you get way faster performance because the latencies are much lower. You also have hot and cool tiers, and you've got even archive tiers, depending on whether you're trying to archive your data or back it up. In addition to the availability of these tiers, we also give you tools, policy-based mechanisms. We call that lifecycle management on the platform. We allow you to manage the lifecycle of the data that you have and tier them from a high-cost tier all the way down, even potentially to an archive tier. So that also gives you capabilities to manage the cost. Then let's look at the openness of the platform itself. And we've already discussed this. On Azure, we have a whole slew of analytics engines or ingestion mechanisms or visualization mechanisms. We're very tightly integrated with all of these services. Data Lake Storage is the foundation for all of these analytics solutions on the cloud. But in addition to that, we don't stop with Azure. We also work very closely with third-party companies across the board, whether it's integration and preparation, where you're bringing the data in and preparing that for consumption, or an analytics engine or a BI solution that's acting upon it, or a governance solution where you're actually trying to specify access control on that data. And last but not the least, if you are an on-premise customer who's trying to migrate that data from an on-premise Hadoop cluster to Azure, we work with partners on that as well. So we have a very wide ecosystem, and we like to provide that choice to customers in terms of which solution you actually want to use on your data lake implementation. Let's spend a few minutes on data lake migrations. On Azure, you have a variety of options. Whether it's Azure Data Factory, it can be used as an ingestion or a preparation tool. It can also be used as a migration tool. If you're trying to migrate data from your on-premises, you can use Azure Data Factory. You can use Databox. We can ship you an appliance, you copy the data, and offline migration of that data over to Azure. Or like I said, we partner with WANdisco, it's a third-party company, to help you with the migrations. Let's just look at the WANdisco solution itself. So it's a partnership we've had with WANdisco over the past few years. The benefits of WANdisco solution, it's very tightly integrated with Azure in the portal. It's a very daunting task for a lot of customers because when they've got massive amounts of data that they've collected for over years, migrating all of that data with all of the integration checks onto a cloud is a pretty daunting task. And a lot of customers will actually spend weeks, months just planning and preparing. And we're trying to take that complexity and that hardship out of the equation for such customers who are looking to move to the cloud. Because it's so tightly integrated with the Azure portal, discovering it is super easy. You go to the marketplace, you look for the live data migrator solution, we call it LDMA for Azure. You find it, it's just like another resource. You go through the prerequisites. The prerequisites essentially are, hey, I need to go and set up express routes. I might have to go and configure my network. I need to know exactly which storage accounts I need to put that data. So you take care of all of those prerequisites. Then on-premise, you need to make sure you've got the agent, the software on the on-premise side to be able to migrate that data over to Azure. So you take care of all of that. And then when you come to Azure, the experience is actually super easy and quick. You go to the portal, you say, I want to create a migrator. You create it. Once you've created the migrator, you're now saying, okay, I need a target. I need to know where that data is going to land on Azure. So you go to the targets. You say, I want to go create the target. You've already created the storage account. So you configure the target and say, here's where I want my data to go. Here's the storage account that I just created. Please create my target for me. The target gets created, and you've finished step one of the process. Now what you want to do is you want to kick off the migration. You've already set up your on-premises edge node because you've got the software installed there. You've defined your target. You now need to map them. So you go create the migration piece, and you say, okay, here's my source path, which is your on-premise path where the data is going to come from. You want to pair it up with the target that you just created. You also specify options in terms of how do I want to migrate the data. You can say start the migration immediately. You click a few buttons, and boom, you've actually created that. And as soon as you've created that resource, the data just starts magically flowing in. It's as simple as that. After a few clicks on the Azure portal, after you've taken care of your prerequisites, you've been able to start migrating terabytes and petabytes of data. We've got feedback from several customers that they've been able to get up and running in minutes. In addition to that, the portal also gives you the ability to monitor how the migration is doing. You can look at all of the metrics right from within the Azure portal such that you're not playing any guessing games. Next, let's look at a customer who's actually benefited from all of the capabilities that I've just spoken to you about. Smiths is a United Kingdom-based industry technology provider. If you've walked into a hospital and looked at the devices at the hospitals, or you're walking into an airport and you've seen a scanner, potentially even some of the appliances you have in your house, you might not even realize it, but you might have Smiths components in any of these devices that you're casually observing as we go about our normal day-to-day business. So Smiths has around 22,000 employees. They have customers from 200 countries worldwide. They actually operate from 50 regions, so they are a globally distributed company. They had some issues where they had massive volumes of data across all of these 50 divisions. And in order for them to actually get the insights from this data, they had around 800 applications that they had developed over time. What they wound up doing was they created a data lake implementation. They brought all of that data across all of these divisions into Azure Data Lake Storage. They used Azure Databricks to prepare and curate that data for all of these divisions within the company. They leveraged Power BI to replace what was originally a very manual and error-prone reporting setup that they had, and automated everything. And since it was low-cost data lake implementation, they got the benefits of cost, they got the benefits of saved time, and they also got the benefits of accurate data that they're getting from the platform. So that's a great example of how a customer has leveraged our solution. So key takeaways for you today. Number one, the platform that we have is a low-cost, purpose-built solution primarily for analytics. It's super performant, massively scalable, and has a very vast, extensive integration with all of the ecosystem that's out there to help you get the value of the data that you have within your organization. So thank you for spending the time today. Please visit us at the links that you see here, and have a good rest of the day.